Now called to order. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May we have a roll call, please?
Okay, Mr. Prince,
Here.
Mr. Corman,
Here.
Mr. Bavoni, Ms. Perez, Mr. McIrvin,
Here.
Ms. Switchy,
Here.
Mr. Person. Roll call, Mr. Mayor. 1, 2, 3 absent.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move we excuse the absent council members.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Mr. McIrvin, that council excuse the absent council members. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Okay, first item on the agenda is a special proclamation on a very important topic.
Okay, proclamation, Secure Your Load Week. Whereas in 2004, Robin Abel, a Renton resident, began her campaign to bring awareness to the danger of improperly secured loads in vehicles after her daughter was severely injured by debris from an unsecured load. And whereas in 2005, due to the tireless efforts of Robin Abel, Washington legislators adopted what has been called Maria's Law, which makes it a misdemeanor and criminal negligence if all or part of a load shifts or falls and causes substantial bodily harm to another. And whereas in 2015, President Obama signed a 5-year national transportation bill that included what Abel calls her paragraph, which pointed out the dangers of unsecured loads and encouragement for states to address the issue. And whereas, according to a recent study by the AAA Foundation for Safety, more than 200,000 crashes in the past 4 years were caused by road debris, plus road debris resulted in approximately 39,000 injuries and 500 deaths between 2011 and 2014. And whereas we recognize the profound suffering and loss of those harmed by unsecured loads and stand with those critically impacted by such instances of avoidable tragedy. Whereas all drivers must recognize their responsibility to make safe and considerate choices while driving, and driving with an unsecured load presents danger to the traveling public. And whereas the simple routine act of securely affixing every load makes our roads safer for all drivers, and these precautions should not be overlooked. Now, therefore, I, Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton, do hereby proclaim June 6th through 12th, 2018 to be Secure Your Load Week in the City of Renton, and I encourage all citizens to give serious consideration to their safety and the safety of others when transporting materials in their vehicles on our roadways. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Renton to be affixed this 4th day of June, 2018. Signed, Dennis Law, Mayor of the City of Renton.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move we adopt the proclamation as read.
Second.
It's been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Mr. Corman, that the council adopt this proclamation as read. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. In addition to this proclamation, the Renton Police Department is going to be conducting a very strong emphasis for this period of time to stop motorists that have unsecured loads. And this will become part of a regular enforcement effort in Renton. And I feel very pleased to present this proclamation to Robin, who's here this evening. I have to say that we've learned as an organization through our employees that drive trucks and carry loads a lot about securing loads, thanks to Robin's effort. She was pretty much our watchdog out there, and I would hear routinely when a truck could go by with an unsecured load. And our staff has done a great job of taking this seriously. I won't say that we don't have a hiccup along the way once in a while, but they're very conscientious about it. So it's my pleasure to present this to Robin.
Want me to say something?
Sure, please.
This, first of all, means an awful lot to me because I never thought something could happen to my family, okay? And the whole reason I do this is so nothing will happen to your family. it starts with changing the law, but the most important thing is intent here and what we do every day. So I can't thank you enough for this. The City of Renton's made a real effort. I've not only mentioned when there's an unsecured load, but recently stopped one of your employees because it was one of the best secured loads I'd ever seen, and I was very thankful for that. I mean, I asked them to keep sharing that message for me. But thank you very much. As of today, I have 49 states on board doing this, and I think I have 21 proclamations from governors. I didn't even expect a few, but they're all still pouring in. I got 4 in the last 24 hours. So there's been a huge surge of interest in this, and this is important to me because this is where I live. Thank you.
Thanks, Robin. Okay, moving on to administrative report, Mr. Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. I just have one item for you this evening. Please join us tomorrow, Tuesday, June 5th, at the Piazza Park in downtown Renton as Mayor Law officially rings the opening bell at 3 p.m. to kick off the 17th season of the Renton Farmers Market. The market will be filled with fresh flowers and a bounty of farm fresh produce this and every Tuesday from 3 p.m. until 7 p.m. beginning tomorrow through September 25th at Piazza Park, located in downtown Renton at the corner of South 3rd Street and Burnett Avenue South. In addition to market fairs, shoppers will enjoy live music, tips from master gardeners, cooking demonstrations, and children's activities. New this season, Logan Avenue South will be closed between Piazza Park and Gateway Park, making it easier to cross the street to get to food trucks, children activities, special events, and live music from buskers at Market West. Also, the market will continue to offer the Fresh Bucks incentive program, which offers a now unlimited dollar-for-dollar match to be used on fresh produce for SNAP shoppers. That's all this evening.
Okay, thank you very much. I also wanted to mention something. Committee of the Whole that preceded this meeting today was a special presentation to council from the Citizen Advisory Committee that has been working for over 5 months now on evaluating our parks needs and maintenance needs throughout the city. And I just want to thank that group as well as all of our employees from community services that have worked so hard over the last 5 months to be able to identify all of the park system and trail system and all the things that we currently use and things that we need as the city continues to grow. And I especially wanted to thank Tim Searing and Bob Reeder, who were here tonight, and they made a great presentation, which I know the council will be deliberating over probably the next few weeks. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that. Okay, moving on to audience comments. Let's see, Jason, I didn't
Didn't you get it?
receive anything. Thank you. So we have a couple of people here signed up to address the council, and when I call your name, please come up to the podium, give your name, city of residence for the record, and you have 5 minutes. So first is Gary Williams.
Actually, it's Gary Williamson.
Oh, I'm sorry, Gary.
That's all right. 2011 Harrington Avenue Northeast here in Renton. Seconds count. That's what we're told all the time, and especially in medical emergencies and stuff. I've witnessed so many times when our fire department has not been able to find an address. I've gone to Station 12. I live up in the Renton Highlands, just half a mile away from Station 12. I've gone to them. I've talked to lieutenants. I've talked to captains. I've talked to battalion chiefs. I get a bunch of. I have voiced my concerns that they use a grid system to find homes rather than using the GPS or something like that, and they told me they did not have GPSs. An instance, a couple of summers ago, I was working in my backyard. I had a grinder going. The grinder got in a bind. It flipped back and cut across my hand. So we called for the aid unit. My wife and I, the corner that I live on, if you're familiar with Meadowcrest Elementary School, I'm on the northeast side of it. It's where Kirkland Avenue comes around past the fire station and goes north. It circles around up at the top, becomes Harrington. Well, that's actually a four-cornered intersection. My side is Harrington, right across the street is Kirkland Avenue. To the right is Hillcrest Terrace, and to the left is Jefferson Avenue Northeast. So my wife and I are standing out there, my hands all wrapped up and everything else. The aid unit comes up, turns the corner, and goes down to 2011 Jefferson. So I went over and I asked the gentleman, I says, "Are you by any chance looking for a man with a cut hand?" He says, "Yeah." I said, "Well, you're supposed to be over at 2011 Harrington." I called him from the corner. So they came over. Numerous times I've seen them sit back on the corner looking for my address or whatever address it is, stopped and trying to figure out which way to go. What brought it to a head for me was last night, the lady on the next block up from me on Kirkland Avenue Northeast, she's in the 2100 block. The aid unit stopped up on the corner again at 20th and Kirkland, sat there for a minute. You could see the two gentlemen in the truck. And believe me, I love our fire department. I've got all the respect in the world for them. Two gentlemen are discussing which way to go, drove right past her house, decided to get so many calls into the Hillcrest Terrace that must be where it's at. So they drove inside of there, they talked to a gentleman inside there, found out it was the right one, came back around and came to the lady's house. And like I said, I've talked to lieutenants, captains, battalion chiefs, and everything else down there. I've had no success with them, so I decided, okay, we'll go to the top. I came down here to talk to the fire chief. Fire chief just happened to be out at the time I had made an appointment. And Deputy Fire Chief Roy Gensolis, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing his name, was in the meeting, couldn't be disturbed, so I talked to the gentleman, took down all my information and everything else, and I told him the reason I'm down here is because I'm not getting any response out of Station 12. I'm just getting a bunch of hot air, and I'm tired of hearing it. So instead, and he told me that this deputy chief makes room every day for these type of things and everything else. Instead of getting him, I get a battalion chief that shows up at my house from Station 12. He tells me that the guys that were on that particular incident, the one with my neighbor, that he talked to them and they said yes, that they had driven past her house, realized the mistake they made. It was just a human error type of thing. And I asked him, I said, "Is this acceptable to you?" And he kind of hemmed and hawed a little bit, and I said, "No, I want to know if this is acceptable to you." He says, "Actually not." I said, "So what are we going to do about it?" He says, "Well," I again mentioned about the GPS system and stuff. He said, "Well, actually," and he's the first one that's told me, "We got GPS about 3 months ago, but the guys don't use it because they pride themselves on being able to find addresses." I said, "From what I'm evidencing," and I got a whole bunch of more stories I could tell you, "I'm not seeing that happen. And I'm concerned. I want something to happen. Be it GPS or however you do it, I think that we can improve the response, and there's no reason why it shouldn't happen."
Okay, well, thank you, and I'll personally talk with the fire chief this week, and we'll get back with you.
Yeah. I would really like to know why the deputy chief didn't get back to me instead of sending the battalion chief that I'd already talked to.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
you betcha, thank you. Next is Craig Kepla. Did I pronounce that correct?
Yes, you did. I have no comments at this time, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Craig. Diane Dobson.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. I am here tonight, Diane Dobson, Renton, Washington. There's a lot of development in the downtown core. We're seeing units built upwards of 50 units, 80 units, 90 units. The proposal at the 200 mill is approximately 450 units, and one just came on the radar at the end of Williams for 170 units. So there's lots of people, lots of traffic, and lots of pets. So as I stated the last time I was here, I'm super excited about the collaboration of the city and the various entities in the community. We've been working diligently on things like landscaping, pressure washing, litter and garbage pickup, and lots of other projects in the downtown core. It's been great seeing you guys out there supporting the various events and cleanups thus far. As part of that collaborative effort, we've been keeping our eyes open for areas we can improve on and for ways the city can be improved as well. With all the development on the horizon, it brings to attention a few areas that we may be able to realize improvement, or in the event policies are currently in place, places that could realize some enforcement. Some of those could be in the planning department and ordinances. Parking, while it's fantastic that the city has a minimum number of required parking spaces with the construction of new apartments, what seems to be problematic is what happens after that construction is finished. Many of the new build apartments charge their tenants for parking in those same spaces after you're required to build them. Therefore, there are a number of apartment residents who, in order to keep their costs low, choose instead to opt out of that paid parking space and instead park along the streets, in the city, in the neighborhoods, and in public parking lots. This has a direct impact, as you can imagine, on our residents, our businesses, and visitors to the city. A second area where planning may be able to improve, where the enforcement could occur if plans are already in place, is pet relief areas. Many of these same apartments do allow for pets, even to the point of charging additional pet fees, either in deposits or even monthly pet fees. Yet it seems that no pet relief areas are required at those same locations. So as a result, there are a lot of green spaces, parks, parking strips, grasses that are covered in pet litter. Many applause to the Parks Department recently for the cleanup of the Veterans Memorial Park before the Memorial Day celebration, as there is a recent build there that, despite being 1 block away from the Cedar River Trail, Jones Park, Liberty Park, 3 blocks away from Tonkin Park, 5 blocks away from Burnett Linear Park, and a mere 3 blocks away from the dog park, some of the residents with dogs much bigger than the 25-pound limit allowed quick stop at the Renton History Museum and the Veterans Memorial Park directly across the street from the apartments. And despite the 2 mutt-mitt stations at that same location, some pet owners seem to think they're immune from Ordinance 4419, where pet owners are responsible for pet litter removal. So quite possibly, if new build apartments were required to put in and maintain responsibility for a pet relief area at their same location, it may decrease the negative impacts felt in our downtown core. Again, super excited about the collaborative effort and approach between the city and the various entities, and I look forward to what the future holds in store.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to the consent agenda, we have 4 items for council consideration. Are there any items a council member would like pulled for discussion?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. Prince.
I move that we approve the consent agenda as published.
Second?
Been moved by Mr. Prince, second by Mr. Corman, that council approve the consent agenda. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Unfinished business, the Chair of Planning and Development has pulled the committee report for this evening, so I don't believe we have any unfinished business to
Nope,
report.
none.
Okay. Move on to new business. Mr. Prince.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, announcing for council member person, the Finance Committee meeting on Monday, June 11th at 4 p.m. Finance will meet in the council conference room. They have 3 items on the agenda. Department of Ecology grant for Shoreline Master Program, vouchers, and emerging issues and revenue streams. And for Committee of the Whole at 5:30 on Monday, June 11th, 2018. In council chambers, we have 2 items, the Family First Community Center update and the CAC recommendation deliberation. And that is all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Corman.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, as a Vice Chair of Public Safety Committee, I'd like to announce a Public Safety Committee meeting on June 11th at 5 o'clock p.m. in the council conference room. There will be 2 items on that agenda. The first is Vehicle Impoundment and Redemption Code Amendment, and the second item is Emerging Issues in Public Safety. And that's all, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. McGurven.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a walk-on ordinance I'd like to bring before the council concerning establishing a moratorium on accepting applications for residential development in the CA zone. So I would like to move that ordinance be placed on, move that ordinance for first and advancement to second and final reading tonight. And I can speak to that ordinance once it's been, if it's been seconded.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. McGurven, seconded by Mr. Prince, that an ordinance be placed, sorry, I don't have a copy of that, be placed on first reading and advance to second reading this evening. And it has to do with the moratorium. Did you want to speak?
And I can, yes, certainly speak to the reason. I just want to make sure I'm doing that. And I'm looking to the city attorney to make sure everything was good on that. So, all right. So the issue is in our CA zone, we received quite a bit of interest in development. Earlier this year, the council initiated a docket item regarding looking at townhomes within the allowed, permitted uses within the CA zone. The reason we need to move this ordinance effective immediately is to make sure that we obviously allow staff to continue to do the work to look through those allowed uses in the CA zone and before any development applications get submitted. So this will basically just be a little timeout.
Any questions from council? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. So we'll go to,
We can finish new business, Mr. Mayor?
I
and then-
I guess I could do that. I shouldn't leave our other council members out. So Ms. Witchy, any new business?
No new business,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor.
Okay,
And then I have the ordinance.
all right.
So this is for first reading and advancement for second and final reading. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, establishing a moratorium on accepting applications for residential development in the form of townhouses within the CA, Commercial Arterial Zone, setting forth findings of fact in support of said moratorium, providing for severability, declaring an emergency, and establishing an immediate effective date.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McIrvin.
I move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
It's been, do you want to
Or do I
advance
need
that?
to, do I need to advance it first?
You can do it either
Move
way.
it to the
but-
second
Either way.
reading.
Okay.
Okay. It's been moved by Mr. McIrvin, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be placed on second and final reading this evening? Is that what your,
We can go with that, yes.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.
All right.
Okay, one more reading. An ordinance of the City of Renton, Washington, establishing a moratorium on accepting applications for residential development in the form of townhouses within the CA, Commercial Arterial Zone, setting forth findings of fact in support of said moratorium, providing for severability, declaring an emergency, and establishing an immediate effective date.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, Mr. McIrvin.
now I move the ordinance be adopted as read.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved by Mr. McIrvin, seconded by Mr. Prince, that this ordinance be adopted as read and it requires a roll call.
Okay, Mr. Prince,
Aye.
Mr. Corman,
Aye.
Mr. McIrvin,
Aye.
Ms. Switchy.
Aye.
Roll call, Mr. Mayor, all ayes.
The ayes have it. Thank you very much. What's the wish of the council?
Move we adjourn?
Second?
Second.
Been moved by Mr. Prince, seconded by Mr. Corman, that we adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it.